What is going on, my planting people? I'm Lithius and this is Roots Ready. This is an extra special episode. In fact, it's the last favorites video for 2023, and I thought I'd release this one on Christmas Day. So if you are watching on the day of release, then Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everybody. If it's a bit later than that, then Happy New Year, and I hope you had a fabulous, wonderful, festive season with your friends and loved ones. So we're going to get into it now. I've got 5 plants that I'm going to show you in today's episode. 5 that I think are doing just great. I think we're a bit Hoya heavy in today's episode actually. So we've got 5, 3 of them are Hoyas, and I'm looking at them now. They're great selections, and I'll tell you exactly why. But we're going to start with the biggest, the most impressive looking one on this list today. And this plant I've maybe featured a couple of times on the channel so far, but you know, hold on to your seats because this one's pretty impressive. And the plant that we're talking about is this one right here. This, ladies and gentlemen, oh my goodness, this is my king Antherium. Look at it. Look at the size of those leaves. This is also known as the Antherium veitchii. Just have a look at that new leaf. Absolutely lush, gorgeous. It's basically outshining me in this video, and this is exactly why it is one of my favorites. It's not the fastest grower, however it does size up quite nicely, quite quickly. So that's why I had to put this plant on my favorites list, and it had to take the first place on this list because of how immense and how gorgeous and how, you know, the grandeur of this plant. Look at it. Such a wonderful plant. The one thing I've had to do to keep this plant in this sort of formation here, because this is a sprawler, it likes to spread its leaves as far and as wide as it can go. I've actually had to sort of cable or plant tie these together, and that's just to stop it from sprawling out, and that means that I can contain it and keep it growing in a way that it doesn't take away from the space of my other plants. I've got so many plants growing here that I need to find a way to have them as compact as possible, and this is the only way that I could think of it for this plant. But the first plant on this list is, of course, the King Antherium, the Antherium veitchii. Look at this thing. Wow. I mean, it's going to be tough to beat that plant. But second on my list is this one right here. This is my Filadyne hesperocaspidon. When I first got my hands on this plant, it was quite a big stem. It was quite thick, and it had one massive leaf on it, and that leaf was probably about 40 to 50 centimeters long. It was really lush, really gorgeous. A plant I've had my eyes on for a very long time because I'm a sucker for these pendant shaped leaves. So when I got that plant, I tried really hard. I really babied it, and I tried to get it to root, which it did. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, which I haven't quite figured out yet, it just started to decline. I think I had some root rot and stuff like that, and I was growing it in pond at the time, so I did move it over into soil, and since then it's been doing really great. You can see that from the first couple of leaves, they sort of maintained a similar size. It did go through a bit of shock, you can see here, from when it transitioned from pond into soil. So for the next 2 leaves, you can see one here and one here. The plant didn't look great, but it has really started to bounce back with some really gorgeous leaves. Look at that. Look at that. Just absolutely gorgeous. And we have the latest leaf here. I really do love the way these leaves look when they first come in. It's got a lovely bronze copper look to it, and that just, yeah, that really does it for me. I think it looks just amazing. It really reminds me of the Philodendron mycins when they first start to come out. They have a similar color, but of course it hasn't got that velvety leaf, although this is quite soft. And then when it hardens off, it goes back into that sort of that leathery, that traditional leaf shape. And you know, I really do enjoy growing this plant, and I have it front and center in my collection here, so I get to appreciate it every day. And it's one of the first ones that I look at when I walk in, just because of that leaf, that new leaf. Just want to see how much it's grown, and what it's doing. And it's been a really reliable grower as well, and I'm really looking forward to growing this plant a lot more, get it a lot bigger, get those juicy 50 centimeter long leaves that I had when I first got it. And then the sky's the limit. I want to see how far I can take this plant. So the second plant on my favorites list for today is this one right here, the Filadyne hesperocaspidon. Also love that name. So now we're going to talk about some Hoyas And what you will notice, all of these Hoyas that I'm going to talk about today, they have a lot of similarities, and that is in the venation of the leaves. This plant, I know it doesn't look like much, it's only got a couple of leaves on it. This is my Hoya callistophila, and the reason why it's on this list, even though it only has those 2 leaves, and I'm sure that this leaf in the middle here, that might fall off anytime now, but the reason why it's on here is because I've had this leaf as a single cutting, just a single node cutting, and it's been like that for months, way beyond half a year. And finally this plant has given me a couple of leaves, so that's my reason for putting it on this list. Now, the callistophila was a very popular plant during the plant boom. I've always enjoyed the dark green venation and the light green. I just love how it contrasts. I think it looks really just prehistoric, and that's one of my things about Hoyas. I love a Hoya that's 2 things I love about a Hoya, right? I love a big leaf Hoya, and I love a veiny Hoya as well. Those are the things that do it for me. And this one has a lot going on when it comes to venation, and I'm so glad that it's finally decided to put out a new leaf for me. This leaf has probably come out in the last month or so, and it's hardened. But this one, I don't know what's going to happen with this one. But still, I'm going to put it in my favorites list because I've been waiting for something to happen with this plant for so long, and I'm so glad that it's finally put out a new leaf. So the third plant I'm going to be talking about today on this favorites list is this one, the Hoya callistophila. The next Hoya I'm going to talk about is this one right here. This is my Hoya clemensorium. Now this, I think I have featured this on my channel before, and it was quite a big, healthy, bushy plant, but I actually went and I propagated it, and I only had this bottom cut in here. And the reason for putting it on here is because it's been quite a slow grower, and when I first got this plant and I had it just as a 2-leaf cutting as well, it was quite slow to start, but when it starts, it really sort of explodes in growth. So this is exactly what happened here. The plant was really slow to start. It rooted quite nicely, quite quickly, but it takes a while to start producing some new leaves. And now that we finally have some new leaves, I think it's well deserving of being on my favorites list. Just look at those leaves. Similar to the callistophila, it is super veiny, but it has even more of a prehistoric look. And when this plant matures, the leaves are massive. So this Hoya has everything that the callistophila has, but the cherry on top is that the leaves grow quite large. Check it out on Google, you will see exactly what I mean. The leaves grow absolutely huge, and they start to get these little ridges along the leaf. Perhaps you can maybe see it on this leaf if the camera picks it up. There is a bit of that wavy pattern just on the leaf edge, but as the plant matures, that becomes even more pronounced, and I just can't wait for this to happen as well. This is a plant that deserves to be on this favorites list. It's just amazing. I'm really enjoying it, and I want another bushy one. I might not actually propagate it when it starts to grow again, but we'll see. I say that now, but when the summer comes around and it's in this growing season, it starts to explode in growth, I might change my mind. The last plant I'm going to talk about is this one right here. This is my Hoya villosa. Look at this thing. This is a really fast growing plant. Believe it or not, this was just, again, a 1-leaf cutting. Well, actually, no, this was my mother plant, which I completely chopped back. And it has now completely regrown, and it looks just phenomenal. This plant, again, has amazing venation. But for me, what makes this plant stand out is the leaf shape. It's got a really round and unique leaf shape, and it's also just, I don't know, there's something about this plant that I really enjoy. I think it's also in the texture. And if I turn the leaf around, look at that. It's got this really fuzzy back. It's one of very few plants that you can actually just appreciate for the touch. If you're a plant petter, you like to touch your plants, you like to feel them, then this is a great one to add to your collection. It's so soft. It's like you almost want to just rub it against your face. It's a really nice plant, and to top it all off, it's also very fast growing as well, to the point where I've actually now have to consider wrapping it around my plant shelf behind me just so that it can continue growing, because once the tendril starts to droop, it then stops growing as quickly and as rapidly, but when it's staked up, it grows really quickly. So that's something to consider if you have it. Now that fuzzy texture actually extends to the tendril. Look at, I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but it's got this really lovely fuzz to it. I'm not a person that loves fuzzy plants. Like, there is a philodendron, I forgot the name of it. It's got extremely fuzzy petiole, and for me it's really off-putting. It really just reminds me of spider legs, and it just makes me feel uncomfortable. But this just does it right. If this was a jacket or a shirt, I would love to wear it. It just feels so nice, so soft. So for that and so many more reasons, this is why this Velosa is going to make it to my list as well. So it's a gorgeous plant, and I think a perfect place to end it for today. So that was it, my final 5 favorites for 2023. I hope you enjoyed it, and as I said, if you're watching this on release day, a very Merry Christmas to you all. But as always, keep planting.